Dinosaur Cup. I got a Dinosaur Cup. All right, so it's been a while. Stepped away. And, you know, while I was off YouTube, a little show called X-Men 97 came out. Now, I watched the entire first season of that when it came out. I really liked it. I was actually kind of shocked because, you know, we don't even have to go into everything that the MCU has been doing. But let's just say it hasn't been going well, to say the least. It has not been doing so hot. So now the first half of the second season is out, and you know what? Something I think I've noticed is when a TV show is a little bit more solid, they do not release it all at once because they know they got something good on their hands that people are going to want to tune into incrementally over time, and they'll wait for it. And when something is like sort of, you know, either mid or it's got some good points, or, you know, they're just kind of concerned about it, they just release the whole daggum thing. And I think that's the case here, where they're only releasing 3 episodes, because I can't speak for the rest of the season. All I can say is for this one and last season. So it took me a minute because I wanted to rewatch the entire, there's so much stuff I forgot about, you know. And if you haven't watched these 3 episodes yet, first of all, we're going to talk about some stuff, so just keep that in mind. But second of all, you will be completely lost. And this is something I really like about this show, is this show is for people who know what's going on, people who love the X-Men, okay? It's not all about Wolverine. It's not all about 1 or 2 characters. They do my boy Cyclops, who has been probably my favorite X-Men in my adult life. I loved him a lot long before he gained this newbie fan base that's come around. It's like, oh, Cyclops is kind of cool. I liked him when he freaking died in X-Men, the 3rd X-Men movie. What the freak was that movie called? I've erased it from my memory, okay? I have liked, ever since the first X-Men movie came out in 2000, I have liked this character. You know, when I was a kid, I really liked Gambit. He was my favorite. But as I got older, I really loved Cyclops. And I think that they have done a great job, not only just focusing on him, but every single character in this show. They are doing a great job of going into, you know, the backstories of these characters. Cable, another one of my favorites. This is really, you know, the back end of last season was his time, and this is too, and they're dealing with all the apocalypse stuff, you know. And it looks like they're going into some Kang the Conqueror stuff. I like their integration of other characters in the MCU. We're in season 2 of the show. I still can't believe we have not announced Spider-Man come back. I don't know if it's because the retooling of the adult theming, you know, because the people, all of us who watched the original X-Men animated series are grown up now. So, you know, obviously when they're going to bring it back, they're like, we need to update this a little bit. And I think for the most part, that's worked. There's been a couple of times where I've been watching it and I'm like, did they forget this is supposed to be in the 90s? You know, some millennial humor here and there, but for the most, especially with Jubilee, like she's the one that's like, Herm, actually. But for the most part, you know, they've steered away from that. Somehow they have, you know, because everything else I feel like comes out these days cannot get away from that. But somehow this show is immune, and I think it's the time period that's sort of, you know, keeping it safe, as it were. But with Spider-Man was, I think they might be having a hard time thinking about adapting that to a more maturity. A more maturity, that's not a word. Making it more mature, right? I could be wrong. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that he was in, like, we saw that he's standing there with Mary Jane at the end of season 1, right? So we know some stuff has happened with him, okay? Apparently, something must have happened because Captain America came in the first season, and as we all know, he like was in a portal fighting Red Skull for eternity. Then he returned for the Secret Wars, which kind of never happened in Spider-Man the Animated Series finale. So, you know, some stuff has obviously happened there, and I feel like that on some level they must, want to do it. But another thing is, like, you had all the drama with them firing, the guy who did the first one, and now I'll be honest, I was kind of worried because we think what you want about him, but that first season was great, so I was worried someone else was going to come in like the Rian Johnson effect and be like, well, that was nice, but now it's time for a modern audience. And that didn't happen, thank God. But I'm wondering if, like, they're thinking like, okay, we've had so much complication with even trying to get the second season out, can we like do a Spider-Man show? Like, it'll probably be a big undertaking, but I think it needs to happen because we're seeing things in this show that need a little bit more explanation. What's Doctor Doom up to? Who are the Fantastic Four in this universe? What is we saw Iron Man standing next to President Kelly, which, by the way, he's president now, so that's probably affected the entire MCU. Not the freaking MCU, no, this universe, this 90s universe. Jeez, there are points this season where the animation just looks better. Not only does it look better than last season, but I don't know what they're doing, but it looks really good. Something that I hate nowadays is, especially it appears like if it's like a male character villain, that they have to be put in their place and all of this stuff, and it makes it to where, like, with like the Kylo Ren effect, where like you beat them every time you see them, to where they're not really that imposing. There's not really that much depth to them, and even if there was, you wouldn't care because they're not competent character. They completely have done away with that with Apocalypse. I do feel like his horsemen are kind of weak, which is weird. I don't like and that's something that's just across the board, with these types of ensemble shows. Is it's just power scaling. Someone will be more powerful just because they need a moment to shine, and then they'll get knocked out, and it won't make any sense. Like, we have shown that apparently Storm can summon the power of the sun. So now that she's figured out this new ability, I don't even think she needs to be on the X-Men anymore, because she could just completely just be her own hero and just summon the sun and just like destroy anything that's a problem, in the future. Unless they have some sort of MacGuffin where like, that was a one-time thing though, So like these shows, especially Marvel Universe, because it's got so much going on, they always run into these issues. So that's the type of stuff that, like, you just got to be careful about nitpicking, because it's like, do you want to have a good time or not? Okay, as long as there's not something happening in the show that really takes me out of it, like something political happens, or they look at the the camera and they're like, dear viewer, I think you could do better, as long as they're not doing that stuff, I think we're okay here. With the old show doing so much with time travel, I was kind of worried that we weren't going to do that anymore. With this show, and it's so cool that they're doing this time travel stuff. And, for me, the emotional moments still land. They still land pretty good. I've heard the criticism that way too much happens too soon in these episodes, and what everyone needs to understand is what you need to do, especially if you're lost and you want to understand what's going on in the show, go watch the original show. And it's going to be night and day, because that was truly written for kids, so they do not go anywhere near a lot of the topics this new show goes. Okay, so it can kind of feel disjointed, like it's not the same show sometimes, and I get that, but I also understand what they're trying to do. Okay, but what you have to realize is, in the old show, that's what they used to do. They used to wrap up problems in 5 minutes that should like take 3 episodes, right? Like Beast will just come up with some nonsensical solution to a problem so that the episode can end on time. That same kind of like they're just keeping the show consistent by making it more mature and palatable, right? But they're sticking to that formula, and I respect it. And I think if you realize what the show is, what the show was, then you will you'll have a more of an understanding of that, and it won't really bother you so much. I'm just amazed about how well this show is embarrassing the MCU, and it's just showing that you can do this. You can make something good and popular at the same time. The problem is, just don't go off the rails. Don't make it political. Don't talk down to your audience. Actually write in-depth characters that you care about, like how they're doing with Apocalypse right now, going back into his history, going into his future. The same thing that they've done with Cable. In the old show, he was just a side character that would show up every once in a while, but like, hey, the future's a bad place. We gotta stop it. But now he's a character you can kind of understand. He's a character that, like, you're seeing what made him. I am very interested to see, for X-Men fans out there, if they're going to do Strife at all, if they're going to go that route. I would think they are, because they seem to be trying to explore everything they can so that they can have as much stories to tell as possible. Once again, my boy Cyclops is really great in this season. One thing I especially love about Cyclops, without going into it too much, is he's got really one mutant ability, but he's mastered that ability so well that it's so entertaining to watch him use it every time. And then because he only has the one mutant ability, he's had to make himself competent in every other area, whether it's fighting hand to hand or leading the team or coming up with strategies. And I really think that there's a lot to that character, and for years he was just the like you're watching some sort of teenage movie about this is the main character, Wolverine, and this is the girl he likes, but this guy's already dating her and he's got to figure out a way to get him out of the way so that they can be together. Like, that's, for some reason, in the early 2000s, I love how the show casts shade on all that in the the cinematic universe of the X-Men, which has really been the cinematic universe of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. That's all it's really been about. So I really like that. I like exploring the actual character, because there's a lot there. Like last season when he said, what did you expect, that we would be wearing black leather? Great. I'm loving the comic accuracy. I love how each episode the intro changes to the characters that are in it, and you see characters having an intro that have never had one before. The fact that we actually made X Factor and X Force a thing in this show is amazing. It makes me kind of wonder, when are we going to introduce Deadpool into this show? Because he was really only in a flashback, or not even a flashback. Morph turned into him for like 2 seconds in the old show. So we know he's a part of Wolverine's past. That's all we know. And hopefully when they do bring Deadpool in, he's not like, Herm, oh wow, I'm a crazy millennial humor. Like, hopefully it's like he stays in that time capsule of the 90s too, to where, like, if this show had continued in the 90s, that's the type of character he would be. Not, let's make him like Ryan Reynolds. Let's not do that, actually. Another one of my favorite characters, Phantom X. I would love for him to show up. There is a point where the show focused very heavily on Jubilee breaking out of this prison, and it's just, it wasn't bad. I'm not going to say it was bad. I am just going to say it went on for a little bit longer than it needed to where I was kind of rolling my eyes, and I never want to see Cable and what sounds like a K-pop song in the same shot ever again. Like, that just needs to not happen. There's also this really funny line that I'm going to see if I can find it, where Apocalypse is sitting and he's like, they're like, oh, we had to stop him. He's like, there's only one way I can stop them. I have to go back to the 1990s.
We gotta get the X-Men back to the 90s.
The X-Men. I must strike them at their most vulnerable. The 1990s.
Look, a lot of people are saying, oh, there's too many characters. That's the X-Men. you guys are used to just watching it, you know, they're like, oh, the X-Men is about one character, maybe two characters, and everybody else is side characters. This is an actual ensemble story where they are going to, you know, and they can, because it's a TV show. You can have a lot of characters in a TV show. This isn't a movie. Okay, we've got time. We have time to focus on these characters. So for those of you that are like, there's too many characters going on, I'm going to venture a guess once again that you don't know that much about the X-Men and that you haven't watched the original show. To which, fix both of those, and then if you still feel like there's too many characters, I would love to hear why. Another thing, people are like, casual viewers are lost. Good. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of, it's like, you know, look, they have plenty of reality shows to go watch where they can just pick them up, you know, and they can go watch Who's Dating Who and, you know, Love Island and like all that BS. They could go watch that stuff, okay? They can go watch the sports games they love to watch, you know, where it's like, oh, I hope the team wins so that I can feel better about my life, you know, like, go do that. This show, and you know what? There's even superhero movies that cater to that. Go watch those, okay? This one is for people who grew up with the show that love it, and which is a lot of people. So, you know, if you feel like you're a casual viewer, then don't be. Go back and watch the original show, and then, you know, it won't be so jarring for you. And then, you know, there's, you know, oh, Wolverine doesn't have enough focus. Okay, once again, go watch the old show. He's got plenty of focus. I'm sure they're gonna pivot to him at some point because he's got so many storylines. They're going to pivot to Wolverine, and I don't want it to come across that I don't like Wolverine. I love Wolverine. I think he's awesome. I've been him for Wolverine twice. I mean, I've been him for Halloween twice in my life. I think he's an awesome character. I just don't think that the entire thing, it needs to focus on him. You know, it would be like, you know, it's like them making the Avengers, but it's all about Tony Stark. It needs to be about every single character, you know, because every single character, there's so many interesting. The thing is Wolverine's always been popular, and so they have focused on him way too much, way too heavy, and they're starting to realize, hey, all these other characters have amazing stories to tell too that have not been told yet. So this is going to be a completely new experience for an audience watching it. And that's honestly what I think it is. But still, he's had plenty to do in this show. And, you know, now he's got his bone claws, which is pretty cool after what happened at the end of season 1. He's looking wild. So as an X-Men fan, I really appreciate what they're doing. If you're just solely a Wolverine fan, you're going to be like I felt for years with Cyclops, you know, where you're just going to be like, I'd like to see more of him, you know. But the show has done that before, and I think they're going to do it again. Like, we don't even know what certain characters like Sabretooth and stuff are up to right now. So they're going to get there. But that's pretty much it, guys. I really, you know, as long as this show stays on the path it's going, I think that we're up for another amazing season of this show. Hopefully, it's so successful that they make Spider-Man. Heck, they might even do their own Avengers show. They could have an entire 90s universe, which I think people would love. But only time will tell. And you know what? If for some strange reason they drop the ball, coming up on the next few episodes, well, then I'll talk about that too. But as for right now, I really like the show. I think it's a great opposition to everything else that has, you know, come out around it in today's landscape. I think it's, you know, a diamond in the rough. And if you loved the original show, you're going to like this one. I just want to thank everyone who's been subscribing lately. The channel is growing, but it couldn't happen without you. So we really appreciate that. I'm currently working on my next big video, so be on the lookout for that. As always, guys, stay awesome, stay beautiful, and I'll see you in the next video.